Well, hello. I'm Shawna Fenner, and I'm answering some questions from the Encyclopedia Socionika. And this questionnaire has 41 questions, so I'll start with number 1. What offends you? One of the things that most offends me, I would have to say, would be when people tell me lies. I really hate it when someone can look me straight in the face and just not tell the truth. And invariably, the truth comes out at some point, and it really damages relationships. I would rather have someone tell me nothing, tell me it's none of my business, or they don't feel free to talk about it, but don't just out and out lie. Another thing that really offends me is people who are perfectly capable of taking responsibility for things in their lives, and they want someone else to do it for them. I very much resent a move in our political system today to give people something for nothing. For example, I went to college, I had to borrow some money. Well, after I got through with college, I paid the money back. I incurred the debt, I should have to pay the debt. And now we have politicians promising to forgive college loans and to provide a various array of freebies to people who are perfectly capable of getting jobs and providing for themselves. So it really bothers me when people won't take responsibility for their own lives. I guess you probably can get an idea from this of what my political views are. Nevertheless, I do think it would be nice if political conversations in this day and age could be polite and respectful instead of with so much negative and harsh emotion expressed. It is only natural that different political parties are going to take turns in our country, and when the one I don't favor is in power, I can respect the occupant of the office even if I don't happen to agree with his or her policies. And I would expect the same back, but that's not what we're seeing in today's world, so I find that offensive. And I guess on a much lesser level, I also kind of find foul language thrown out every 2 seconds as being rather offensive as well. It's not that I would reject a person who does this or refuse to be friendly with them, but I don't see any reason for throwing out F words every other word in a sentence or use them just, profligately. I'd rather we kept dialogue at a little bit more respectful tone. The second question, have I ever punched another person? Can I ever imagine punching another person, and if so, under what circumstances? Well, I can't remember ever punching anybody. The closest I guess I would have to say that I ever came to it was grabbing my stepdaughter's arm rather forcefully, and the reason for that was that she was showing a great deal of disrespect for her grandmother, and that really upset me. Doesn't justify what I did. I guess I've often told people that if I witnessed someone torturing an animal or a child, I could happily shoot them. I don't know that that's necessarily true, but the emotion would be there because I hate to see innocent creatures maltreated and abused. Question 3. What are moral rules or morality? Well, to get it right out there, as a born-again Christian, to me morality stems from God's standards and not human standards, at least on the issues that God speaks about in His Word. So morality to me is absolute and not relative. The Ten Commandments are a really good guide for behavior. And, there are a number of other teachings, biblically speaking, that I think would be considered a part of my morality. I realize that absolute morality is not a popular concept in this day and age, but this is the way I feel about it. There are, of course, a number of issues on which the Bible does not speak directly, so in that case, I have to make my best judgment about what I should or should not do based on what I do know about God and His standards. Describe how you daydream. Well, To me, it's kind of like a wandering mind. I'll start to think about something. Maybe it's something I read in a book, or something I saw in a movie or on television, or a conversation I had, and my mind will just kind of take off, envisioning scenes that aren't real, or maybe conversations that are just strictly in my imagination. Usually there's something that spurs an idea, and then my mind just takes it away from there. I wouldn't say that I have a lot of visual elements. Those are more foggy. It's not like I'm seeing as if I were in a place when I'm doing my daydreaming, but the emotions that I'm feeling are certainly there, and it's fun to be able to take a situation and then maybe tilt it the other way, and see how doing something different might change the outcome. Can I describe a situation when someone was unfair to me? Well, I can think of an old one and I can think of a new one. The old one is many years ago, I used to be a high school teacher. And I did something that they considered objectionable. So they gave me the worst set of classes I ever taught. It was 5 sections of frontier history. To know why this was so bad, well, they had this very small, very thin textbook, and you were supposed to base an entire semester of teaching around this book, and the reading level of the material was above that which most of the high school students I taught were really able to read and understand. So you had to create your own content, and of course, creating content when you hate the subject is kind of not so nice. I finally got off the IT list, and then I got 3 classes of psychology one semester. So since these classes are comprised by computer, depending on what other classes people are taking, sometimes you get a really good group, sometimes you get a not so good group. So of my 3 classes this particular semester, 3 of them, or 2 of the 3, were really good A and B students, hard workers, very interested. The other class was, kind of C students. So I'd get called to the office. It was always this note: see me, no topic. Okay, I see you. And I'd get harassed about the grades in this one class. And I kept saying, wait a minute, I'm teaching 3 sections. I'm teaching the identical materials in these 3 classes. You need to look at the whole picture, not just this one class. And this principal absolutely didn't want to do that. And I kept insisting, yep, you have to do that to be fair. So there really wasn't a resolution at that time. They didn't force me to change my grades, but the harassment kept up. See me, see me. Finally, this gentleman retired, and I found out from his secretary later that he had a lot of respect for me. So I guess there was an upside eventually. More recently, this is more of a family conflict. Maybe I shouldn't even go into this. Well, let's just say I grew up with 3 sisters. I'm the oldest. The second oldest died in a car accident at 18. The third sister lives across the state, and the younger sister recently moved into this home where I live. I am in the basement of the house I grew up in. My mom's dad built it, and she wanted to stay here through her life. So when my dad died, my late husband and I moved in here. Well, a couple years back, my youngest sister moved in. And she does have some health problems, but she lost a job, and to a large degree she was responsible. And yet my mom treats her differently than she treats me or my sister across the state. And I find that somewhat aggravating. Also, I was not consulted when my mother made the decision that my sister should join us in living here, and I felt that having lived here for like 20 years, I had some rights to say what happened. But my mom didn't agree with me. So I would consider that kind of not so fair. But I'm surviving. And to some degree, our relationship has been repaired. My sister's and mine, and my mother's and mine. What would be the worst punishment for you? Wow. I don't know that there is a worst punishment for me. The worst punishment for me would probably be to die and find out there was nothing. But I don't expect that to happen. But that would be really awful. What does it mean to feel deeply? And how would you describe experiencing strong emotions? Well, to me, deep feeling is almost a physical, in a way it is a physical experience, because it can be felt in the chest and in the mind, and it's like constantly aware of emotion that you're feeling, whatever the nature of it is, not really being able to shut it off. It's just there. If it's a negative emotion, there can be like a real sense of bodily tension, anxiety. If it's a good feeling, it's like it tends to hit me kind of back here, and it's like a sense of expansion and glowing and just a very positive sensation that I really can't describe, except that's deep feelings for me. What kind of people do you like? Well, I like people who are relatively open. I do like people with similar values, that like similar activities, so we can share and do things together. I like people who are warm and who have, I guess, similar approaches to different problems that arise, so that there isn't a lot of conflict in the relationship. I like people that I can trust, certainly, and people who don't let me down or betray me, and I give them the same loyalty and honesty that I expect from them. You have a fever. What do you do? Well, I guess I'd probably take a couple Tylenol and try to get more sleep than usual and see if that wipes it out. I guess if it doesn't take care of the problem, or if my fever spikes very high, I probably would go to an urgent care facility if I couldn't get into my doctor right away and get diagnosed, so that I could be on the road to recovery. I see no point in spending days and days suffering when I could be doing something productive. All right, how would you feel about taking a bath in someone else's bathroom? Ew. I don't know if I'd feel real comfortable with that one. I guess it would depend on whose bathroom it was. And I suppose if I was traveling and I was in a hotel, I would certainly use the hotel bathroom. But to just be in someone's house, and I don't know. I don't think I'd feel too comfortable with that. What makes you feel uncomfortable? Well, other than taking a bath in someone else's bathtub, when people have little cliques and you're on the out crowd and they make it really evident, when people are gossipy, that makes me feel uncomfortable. I feel uncomfortable if I have to be around people and acting real friendly for long periods of time. I can do social, but I want to come home and have my downtime and be alone and decompress, so I just can't stay on all the time. It makes me uncomfortable when people have very different values from me, and instead of just agreeing to disagree, they find it necessary to attack me or put me down. That's happened a few times, like on Twitter. But I guess that's what happens if you are willing to express a political point of view or a religious point of view. You're going to get some people who don't like what you're saying, but it would make me less uncomfortable if they would show objections in a polite fashion. Who is or would be of primary importance to you, your spouse or your child? Well, I never had a child of my own. I did have stepchildren at one point. And I don't have a spouse right now either. My husband died back in January of 2017. But I guess looking at it from a more theoretical standpoint, ultimately I think the spouse has to be the number one, because that's who you've committed to for the rest of your life, and that's where the priority needs to be, which is not to say that children would not be important and that you shouldn't put their care as a high priority, but I think that you still need to nurture that primary relationship so you have two parents who can co-parent together and get along and maybe agree on rules and just expectations. I think if you allow the spousal relationship to be damaged or put on hold while you focus on a child or children, then you may be putting that whole family structure at risk. So I guess I would prioritize the spouse. How do I organize my day? Well, it's a little more fluid during this time of social quarantine and COVID-19, but I do have a job, so on the days I go to work, I set an alarm clock and I get up and I have a morning routine I go through, and I spend a certain set number of hours at my job Monday to Friday, and then I usually come home, have dinner with my mom and my sister, and then usually I'm alone in the evening to do something productive or just chill out. At my job, however, I do have a lot of liberty in terms of prioritizing tasks. So certain days of the week, there are certain tasks that need to be accomplished then. Others, I can just, I know what the priorities are, I know time frames, and so I just decide for myself what takes precedence. Now that we are doing COVID-19 and staying home, I only go to my job maybe 2 or 3 times a week and do the things there that I cannot do from home. And then the rest of the time I just make sure that I'm here doing what I need to do, but it's a lot more fluid. Saturdays for me are laundry day. I do the family's laundry on Saturdays, and then Sundays is devoted to church. The other things that I do, I also have a kind of a part-time teaching job, which is also related to my main job, but I teach at a Bible Institute, and normally that's on Tuesday nights from September to April, but with COVID we had to go online. But anyway, my Tuesday nights are devoted primarily to teaching. I guess I should also mention that I work at my church. I am a bookkeeper, a webmaster, and a graphic designer. So kind of have to be flexible with what takes priority on any given day. What is the most important thing in life? Well, the most important thing in this life is to know where you're going to spend the next life. So I guess to me that is developing a relationship with God, and the way to do that, of course, is to accept what His Son did for me on the cross. I'm a born-again Christian, and without that I would have no assurance of eternal life with God, and I wouldn't want the alternative. So if I did not know that, then I'd be in big trouble. Back to what's my worst punishment? My worst punishment would be spending eternity without God, and I don't want to do that, and I'm glad I don't have to, thanks to what Christ did for me. Describe a situation where you felt guilty or would have felt guilty. I feel guilty, and I can't think of like a specific instance right now, but if I've committed to do something, somebody wanted me to place an order, or they wanted me to be somewhere at a certain time, and I didn't follow through, that would make me feel guilty. If someone wanted me to do a particular job, like at my church, for instance, and I didn't do my best, I would feel guilty. If I didn't put everything I had into something, that would make me feel guilty. I think I have an obligation to do my best. Let's see. What is love? Have I ever been in love? What did it feel like? Well, lots of kinds of love. There's an unselfish love, such as the one that God has for all of us. I would try to attain that, but in this life I'm never going to quite match the self-sacrificial nature of that kind of love, but I can try. There's the love of friends, and certainly I have felt that. I had a friend who died a little over a year ago, but we were friends since about 1990, and so that kind of love where you can count on someone and you did things together and shared experiences, that's another kind of love. But of course you probably are referring to romantic love. And I have thought I felt love, but I've never had one that really lasted. And I would say that of things on earth, of all the things I wanted, it was that I would have a soulmate somewhere. And it never happened for me, but what it would be like would be kind of an intimacy that is not just physical, but emotional, intellectual, and above all spiritual. It'd be wonderful to have someone to spend time with where you just kind of understood one another and that you found it interesting to talk to them, and there wouldn't be anybody else that you'd rather spend time with. Not that you would never spend time with other people, but your spouse or mate or whatever, the person that you loved, would be the most important person to you and in your life. There's always a rush of infatuation when you meet someone that you feel you like, but I don't think that is something that endures. I think love involves respect and trust and loyalty and integrity. Just, feeling that you can open up with this other person about anything in your life, and know that they will, even if they disagree, treat it with respect and understanding, and where they will be willing to share themselves also. What makes a good work of art? Well, to me, a good work of art is one that creates a positive emotional experience and expresses something beautiful in some way. So I am not a real fan of, let's say, Picasso or other modern art. I don't like atonal music. I want something that creates in me a feeling of beauty and order and some kind of emotional impact. And it could be that it's sad, but it speaks to truth in some way. So art needs to be, intending to reach me and create something positive in me. Ideally, it would speak to God's creation in some way. My favorite composer is Johann Sebastian Bach, and his goal at all times was to give God the glory. And that's the kind of art, I guess, that I really appreciate. What is truth? Do you seek truth? Well, there's kind of truth on two levels. There's truth that's, let's say, tangible, which relates to facts. So something that you could look at or hear or see or find out about, investigate, and either prove it true or false. So true is something that is real. But then there's a whole nother level of truth, which is more abstract. And truth in that respect is absolute. And again, speaking to my religious beliefs, Jesus said that he was the way, the truth, and the life, and that no one comes to the Father but through him. So I can't really describe truth without linking truth to God. So he's the ultimate source of all truth. What do you do for self-improvement? Well, lately I've been learning about socionics. But other things I do for self-improvement, I do try to develop skills at Photoshop, which I use on my job. I try to keep up on my biblical Greek and Hebrew, which I teach. I like to spend time with friends and learn about something. I do take classes occasionally when the Spirit moves me. Latest one was Paint Your Pet. That was fun. Just anything that strikes me that will increase my awareness of self or my ability to help others in some way. What kind of books do you like and why? Well, I like the Bible, number one, because that is my guide for life. But I also like, I've been reading a lot, as I said, about socionics and Myers-Briggs type indicator, various things based on Jung, trying to understand the nature of the cognitive functions better and trying to see where I fit in all that. Let's see. I like some fiction, but I haven't read a lot. I used to read much more of it in my earlier years than I do now. Sometimes I read commentaries on the Bible when I feel that will increase my awareness of some passage of Scripture. That's about it. What kind of films do I like? Well, sometimes I like fantasy-related ones. Sometimes I like just light romance when I just want to escape for a while. Sometimes I like, and I have to be in the right mood for these, but one that would, let's say, expose a social problem or a criminal problem in some way, like an investigation of a criminal enterprise or something that would help me understand what's going on in our world a little bit better, what problems exist that are not something that I encounter in my day-to-day life. If you had a time machine, would you go to the future or to the past? Well, probably the future. I'd like to see what's going to happen, not necessarily to me, but one day Jesus will be ruling and reigning on this earth, and I'd sure like to see what that's like. But I don't suppose I'm going to ever get a chance to do that until it actually happens. How do you know if a sofa is comfortable? Sit on it. See if you can sleep on it comfortably. See if your legs are at the right position, not with your knees up in the air or your knees you can barely touch the ground. Just by the way it feels. Does it feel like it supports you well, but doesn't hit any pressure points? I'd definitely like to be able to have a sofa that you can nap on comfortably. Is unrequited love love? And why? Well, I guess it depends on the basis for the unrequited love. So if you're looking at somebody from afar and you don't interact with them, you may watch them over a period of time, but you never have any personal interactions with them, I would say that's not love. because love involves two people and their interactions. However, I do think it's possible to have someone that you know really well and interact with over a long period of time, and that you come to regard them maybe first as a friend and then a close friend, and then you develop a greater degree of admiration and eventually feelings of love. And it's possible that you feel that way and the other person only regards you as a friend. So I would say in that situation, because it's based on interaction and knowledge over time, that it is possible to love someone who doesn't love you back. And it would be real love. But you can't truly love someone that you don't have some kind of personal relationship with, because you don't know them. You're just making it up in your head. All right, where do I see the world in 100 years? Well, based on where society is at now, and if I believe my Bible prophecy, which I do, I wouldn't be at all surprised if Christ is on earth ruling and reigning in the millennium. I don't think we have that much longer to... society basically is falling apart everywhere, so I don't see it automatically improving. I don't think people are going to all of a sudden change their fundamental nature, so I don't see anything positive unless Christ returns. Describe my ideal partner, or my ideal love. Well, I think I kind of talked about this in the definition of love. My ideal partner would be somebody that I could talk to about anything. And I would find him attractive physically, spiritually, intellectually, emotionally. He would be somebody that respects me as I respect him. He would be somebody that would be a person of integrity. We would both be loyal to each other. Our physical relationship would be very good. No more on that. It just would be somebody that I could talk to about anything and not be afraid of being rejected or put down or misunderstood. Be somebody that's willing to talk out problems with me, so that no two people are identical, so there are bound to be conflicts, and I would want someone that would be willing to, in a calm and measured fashion, talk out problems and reach compromises so that our relationship would continue to grow. What qualities do you seek in your friends? Well, other than honesty and loyalty and similar values, I really appreciate people with a sense of humor. I love to laugh, and I would want people who are, even during serious projects, are still able to laugh at things that come up. There's always something that is amusing or untoward that comes up that one can find amusing and laugh at. So I really love friends who can, appreciate the humor in everyday life. Blessed is he who can laugh at himself, for he shall never cease to be amused. And I would want somebody that, as a friend, who thinks it's important to spend time together, but not someone that is, crowding all of my personal time. So, we get together, it's good, we can talk on the phone or whatever, but not someone that is clingy or needy, but somebody that would talk over their problems with me and I with them. So that's important. How can you tell if someone is a friend? Well, they like me and they want to spend time with me. Actually, some friendships are born out of kind of situational things. The friend that I had for all those many years who recently passed away, I met her in a class that had to do with computer programming, and we just happened to sit together and worked on projects together and studied for tests together, and then got to know each other more and more. And even after all the studying in classes ended, we would get together quite frequently and just talk about things in our lives that mattered, and just get together. So somebody that makes time for you but doesn't invade on your time. My current best friends is actually a married couple, and they actually approached me and wanted to get together with me. They thought, that we would get on well. So, and I agreed wholeheartedly. So up till this COVID thing, we would get together probably once a month and on a Saturday and go do something fun. Just spend time together and have a good time, share ideas, and explore our values. Let's see here. How do you plan your birthday party? Well, interestingly enough, I don't plan birthday parties for me. We have a tradition in my family that we normally celebrate a family member's birthday on the Sunday before or after their birthday. And so my mom will find out what we want to eat, including the main course and the dessert. And so we'll gather around the table after church on Sunday and have our dinner. And one of the traditions I really like is that the family members will say something that they appreciate about the person who's having the birthday. And this is fresh in my mind because my birthday was April 17th, and my mom and my sister were able to share something with me. So I don't plan it, but I do get to have input. What type of work environment do you prefer? Well, I like something that allows flexibility and that allows me to set my schedule and my priorities as much as possible. I used to teach mostly high school, occasionally junior high, and although I liked teaching, I did not like the regimentation. At such and such a time, 5 days a week, you had to be in such and such a room with such and such group of people, and it was just like highly structured, and I didn't really enjoy that. So yes, there are certain expectations about when I should be on the job, but it's nice to be able to order my tasks in a way that seems best to me because I know what the priorities are. I like to do a lot of my work kind of on my own, but it is nice. I have someone in the office with me who's very easy to get along with, so that really helps, and we can laugh about things, and if there's a problem, we can talk about what might solve it. Just laugh about things together. But she does her thing, and I do my thing mostly. And then if we have questions, we can ask each other and help. Let's see. Do you play any sports and why? Well, no, I don't play any sports. However, I do have somewhat of an addiction to professional football, and it stems from my very earliest childhood. I grew up, as I said before, in a family of 4 girls. I was the oldest, and so from about age maybe 2, I can remember being carried in to Detroit Lions football games and sitting on my dad's lap. We used to allow that back then. So from my earliest years, I became a Detroit Lions fan. So when I got older, of course, I got my own seat, but it was something that I could do with my dad. So even to this day, I continue to watch Detroit Lions and groan and moan and pull my hair out because they're doing lousy, but I still enjoy watching professional football. Well, at least Detroit Lions professional football. Maybe they'll improve sometime. That would be nice. All right. Does it matter to you if you break up a relationship or if your partner breaks up with you, and why? I'm not really sure what you mean by does it matter. If you're asking me if I prefer one over the other, I guess I would have to say not really, although if someone broke up with me and I wasn't expecting it, that would be very painful if I wasn't aware that there were problems. And if I was the one doing the breaking, then obviously I've been feeling problems in the relationship on an ongoing basis. So my hurt would have come ahead of time, seeing that conflicts were not able to be resolved. So there's going to be hurt. It's just, when does the hurt occur, and who do you want to blame for it? But I mean, ultimately, if the relationship isn't working, it's much better to break it up, and get through the temporary pain and move on, because there's no sense in remaining in an unhappy relationship. And I ought to know. But anyway, so I guess if I had not shared with my partner problems in the relationship and wanted him to work on them, and then I just sprang a breakup on him, I think I would feel guilty because I hadn't provided them with a chance to make things better. But I wouldn't have done that anyway. I'm always one that wants to get things out in the open and resolved. My frustration with my late husband was that he regarded any kind of discussion about relationship issues as conflict, and he hated conflict. So nothing ever got resolved, and he just kind of pulled into a little shell and didn't communicate. So I stuck with it, but there was really not much of a relationship there. All right. How would you feel if you found out your spouse is having an affair with one of your friends? Well, since I value loyalty and integrity, I would feel awful. And that would be the end of both relationships right there. This would not be something that my relationship with either one of them could come back from. I think after time passed, I could issue forgiveness, but never would I want to continue in the relationship. I just, once trust is broken in that awful way, I just not one that is ever going to be able to trust again. So forgive maybe after time, but retain the relationship, nope. Would you rather watch your favorite movie again or pick one you have never seen, and why? I would say that more times than not, I would like to watch a cat fight happening behind me. No, seriously, more times than not, if I'm kind of wanting to relax, I'll pick a favorite and rewatch the favorite. But every once in a while, I'll see maybe a trailer, or someone will tell me about something, or I'm just in a certain mood and I'll try something new. And some of my favorites have actually popped up that way. And I guess normally if I'm rewatching something, it's because it has produced a certain feeling in me, or perhaps it's been the basis of my daydreams. And it gives me a platform to feel emotions within myself and to imagine myself in different circumstances, or how I would handle things that are happening. Oh dear. Anyway, so I guess I'd say maybe 75% of the time, especially if I'm tired too, I'd rather rewatch something that I know I'm going to enjoy. But occasionally I get in a daring mood and want to watch something new. All right. If you could go back in time and do something you did differently, what would it be? Never get married. At least not to any of the individuals I married. Oh dear. If only that were possible, but no. Let's see. What does it mean that someone is a warm person or a cold person? Well, to me, a warm person, I would notice probably the first thing about them would be a facial expression. A warm person has a smile, or a grin. A warm person has twinkling eyes. A warm person looks right at you and is interested in you and is willing to share about himself or herself. A warm person shows in various ways that he or she cares about other people, considering feelings or caretaking or whatever it might be. A cold person kind of avoids eye contact, gives you monosyllabic answers or doesn't. I would have to say my late husband was a cold person. There was no joy evident in his manner or facial expression or communication, what little there was. A cold person wouldn't necessarily have to be a nasty person, just one that doesn't want to interact, is not friendly in any way, shape, or form, or willing to communicate. How do you know what mood a person is in? Well, facial expression, body language, tone of voice. Sometimes it's not, I guess it would be harder to tell with a cold person than with a warm person, because the warm person would tend to have the expressions on the face that would indicate what they were feeling at the moment. I know someone who shall remain nameless who, the minute you say something that triggers them, it's like this loud and kind of nasty tone, and it's like, I'm out of here. I don't want to deal with that. So, someone that gets, just kind of blows up, they're obviously in a bad mood. Get me out of here. No thanks. All right, what is the goal of having a discussion? Well, it depends on the nature of the discussion. If it's an intellectual discussion, it may just be an exchange of ideas. It might be an exchange of opinions. Ideally, the goal of having a discussion is to convey your point of view and to listen and absorb the other person's point of view or ideas. Even if you don't agree with them, you'd be willing to listen to them. And if they make sense, you might change your own views. In a relationship, the goal of having a discussion might be trivial, like where are we going to go to dinner? Or it might be important. We disagree about whatever the matter might be. What can we do to compromise? So in some cases in a relationship, you might want to discuss something in order to reach a mutually acceptable solution. Overall, then, the goal of a discussion is to communicate something with someone, not just speaking your own opinion or truth, but listening to theirs as well, so that there is actually communication going on. Do you enjoy seeing that people are afraid of you, and why? As I was preparing to do this interview, I was reading some of these questions to a couple of family members, and this one, I said, do I enjoy seeing that people are afraid of you? I said, nobody's afraid of me. I can't even fathom that anyone would be afraid of me. And my sister said, you're wrong. And I said, what do you mean? And she said, you can be very intimidating. You're just like Dad. I'm like, what? No, I would not enjoy thinking that someone was afraid of me. And I don't see myself as an intimidating or scary person in any way, shape, or form. I don't try to force people to do stuff. I don't try to insult them or intimidate them. I'd rather go off and be by myself than try to control somebody else. So I was kind of shocked to hear that I was an intimidating presence. But apparently she says I express myself in such a way that, what I say is right. And that's it. So, no, I don't enjoy being thought of as scary or intimidating. My teaching style in my biblical Greek and Hebrew classes is exactly the opposite of this. I want to create a safe, friendly, supportive, encouraging environment. So I would hope none of my students would say I'm intimidating, because that's definitely not what I want, and I would not enjoy scaring anybody. How do I feel about teamwork? Well, it depends on who's on the team and what we're working on. One of my earliest experiences that I can remember with teamwork was in a high school speech class. And one of the final projects was to do a debate. And our teacher happened to be the woman who was the coach of the debate team and the forensics team. And I had a good friend that was in that class, a girlfriend, and she pitted the two of us against each other. And then there were two guys in the class who were both on her debate team. So she assigned one of them to be my friend's partner and the other one to be my partner. So we were given the topic that we were going to debate, and of course you have to do all these little note cards and everything. Well, I kept trying to get my partner to, can we meet at the library and do some research? Never would meet with me, never would participate, but he was good at debate. So, come debate time, he was perfectly willing to use all my lovely note cards, but I didn't like that teamwork at all, especially when I'm not a debater or a public speaker. I hated speech, so that was teamwork that failed, when others on the team do not do their fair share. If I was working on a project that I loved with people that had similar motivation, I would feel differently about, especially if it's not, we're all going to dump the work on one person and, the rest of us are going to go our merry way and take the grade or something like that, because I'd be the one that's doing work. But like at church, there are many people that I would happily work with to accomplish a goal over there, because it's not cutthroat and everybody would be participating. So under those circumstances, teamwork is okay. And how do I know when I like or want something? Because I think about it a lot, and my desire continues over a period of time, and I think of different ways that I would either use it if it's something practical, or appreciate it if it's something that's not something useful, but just something that maybe is nice to look at or nice to listen to or whatever it might be. And if that persists over a period of time, then I probably would like or want that thing. Passing thought, no. But if I can keep thinking about how that would be wonderful and make my life better in some way, shape, or form, then I would know that I really liked it or wanted it. This last one is very interesting. Is the conclusion true or false? Premise 1, New College in Oxford is not a new college. Premise 2, St. Catherine's College in Oxford is a new college. In the conclusion, therefore, there are at least 2 colleges in Oxford. Well, I would have to say that the conclusion is true, but irrelevant to the 2 premises as they are currently worded. If you revised them and said New College is an old college in Oxford, and St. Catherine's College is a new college in Oxford, then maybe the conclusion would follow that there are at least 2 colleges in Oxford. But, the point of the premises seems to be the age of the colleges, so the conclusion just, while true, doesn't follow from the premises, in my opinion. Now, granted, in my own view of my type, I am not strong on logic, so I may be all wet here, but it just doesn't seem that the conclusion is something that you derive. Oh well, it's true, but it's not not related. And that concludes my interview. Thank you very much for your time.